Well, today is Friday, January 17th, 2025, and we welcome you to our Chapter 49 podcast. Of course, Chapter 49 represents most IRS employees in the state of Indiana. My name is Larry Lannan. I'm a volunteer in communications with Chapter 49 and a retiree. One note that we do want to mention early on, we will not have a podcast next week. If all goes well, we'll be back in about 2 weeks. Not in any way tied to the inauguration next week. It's just other factors that come into play. So with that, we once again welcome back our chapter president, Duncan Giles.
Thanks, Larry. It's always good to be here.
So we are now heading into what I would call the middle of winter. It's January, and we're seeing a lot of cold temperatures around many sections of the country. Not all of them. You know, our fellow people watching and listening to this podcast who are in warm climates. God bless you all. We don't have that advantage this time of year, but it just is what it is. And of course, in central Indiana, we had some pretty cold temperatures. We've had some snowfall, but in just a few weeks, it will all be gone. That's for those who do not like snow. I still know people who like snow. I am not within that realm. I'm not sure how you stand on that issue.
If people like snow, I'm happy to export any and all that they want to them. We're looking forward to, it's warming up a little now, but then another polar vortex is supposed to be sweeping down in the next couple of weeks. And by mid-February, we're supposed to have the coldest temperatures in 20 years in at least the Midwest and possibly many other parts of the country. So, we just have to endure winter and get through it and move on forward.
I was waiting for the good news, Duncan. You didn't have any.
It will eventually end.
Oh, okay. Very good. There's the good news. Let's get to our issues for this podcast. The first one is one that we have talked about before, and we are literally just a few days from the inauguration of a new president. If you have not, go to our Facebook page. You can find it just by searching NTEU Chapter 49 Indiana. We posted a letter to federal employees from our President Joe Biden. He says very nice things about the work we've all done. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend you go to our Facebook page where you can like or follow the page while you're there if you choose to do so. But I think that's worth a read. Anyone who works for the federal government should take a few moments and read that very kind letter President Biden sent to all federal workers. But we do have a new administration on the way. And I know that we've had Doreen Greenwald on this podcast a few weeks ago who gave us this message. You've been doing it. She did a recent conference call with chapter leaders and once again gave that message that let's just stay calm. We know there's a lot of chatter, a lot of noise out there. We don't know what separate the noise from the actions and inactions. I think that's what we're looking for. If there are actions, NTEU is prepared to do what's necessary. So I think the message that NTEU is trying to put out from Washington, and also I think this is coming from the chapters, including ours here in Indiana, those of us who work for the federal government, particularly at the IRS, just understand that we will wait and see, but let's not get been out of shape quite yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things for those of you who go way back for National Lampoon's Animal House. We don't want to be Kevin Bacon, remain calm, all is well while everybody's running over you. Right now, you're hearing a lot of stuff out there in the media. This is going to be happening. That's going to be happening. It's going to be awful for federal employees. They've got the Doge Commission. They've got this. They've got that. They're proposing things in Congress. There's a lot of things that is filling the air that's going on, but none of them have become actual law. None of them have become executive orders. None of them have become official. Until they do, the fear of the unknown is one of the worst fears that there is. And we can't give in to the fear of the unknown. NTU, nationally, locally, and I'm speaking for my brethren across the country, is prepared to do what we need to do to protect our contractual rights. We have a contract that is in effect until the end of September of 2027. We will protect those rights. So, when people are coming to me saying, well, this is going to happen on January 20th or January 21st, no, it's not. There may be executive orders that come out, there may be things, but it takes time, even if they are legal, even if they do supersede the contract, which, unless it's an act of Congress, literally it won't. It takes time to implement these things. So nothing is going to happen overnight. If there are things that are being in conflict with our national agreement that we don't feel that are legal, absolutely we'll take action. But we're going to, try and work with the administration. National President Doreen Greenwald has reached out to the Trump administration and has asked to work with them, and hopefully, wants to do so. So we're going into this absolutely wide open eyes. We understand that everybody's got a different agenda and a different administration. This is the way it's happened, since you've been around, since I've been around. It happens that way. But there should be areas of common ground where we can work together to improve things for the American taxpayer, and that's what we're all here for. So the big news is nothing has happened yet. Remain calm. Let's be vigilant. Don't freak out. Don't lose sleep. Don't throw up. Don't have anxiety attacks. Let's see how it goes, and we'll work from there.
I would say the one area that's been ripe for speculation in recent days, as far as this executive order deluge we're expecting early next week, has to do with Schedule F. And we've talked about Schedule F a lot. Schedule F, in case it's been a while since you've heard about it or talked about it, Schedule F basically will take a number of jobs that are currently civil service and switch them over to presidential appointees. Now, this would generally apply to management officials, not entirely, though. There'll be some, the way this looks, although it's impossible to know because it's never been detailed. It's just a general concept. Schedule F would simply turn some civil service jobs over to presidential appointments. So we don't know exactly how many. We think it would be tens of thousands, but nobody's even sure about that. So I think, Duncan, what people within our bargaining unit need to realize that even if there is some move toward this Schedule F that was begun under the first Trump administration that just ran out of time to do it, they do have some authority to do some things there. But I don't think our bargaining unit should be too concerned about it. Am I right or wrong about this?
No, you've hit it very well. And for folks who don't really understand, there's bargaining unit who is represented by NTU and other federal agencies, the 37 that we represent, and other unions that represent other governmental agencies. And there's non-bargaining unit. Non-bargaining unit are generally your supervisors, your people in policy positions, things of that nature, who are higher level. And those are the ones who may be impacted. Those are not protected by a collective bargaining agreement per se. So if those types of things happen, they shouldn't be happening to bargaining unit employees. As you say, we don't know what the full impact of what they're envisioning Schedule F to be, but NTU is prepared if it does impact bargaining unit employees to work with the new administration, step in where necessary, and take whatever actions need to be to protect their rights.
Yeah, and it should be noted that even though non-bargaining employees are generally those in the management realm, there are some support people to management, secretaries, clerical, and some other support people to managers who are also non-bargaining. So it's more than just people with management authority. There's some others that are covered by that. And that brings me to my next issue. You've touched on this already about telework. As you mentioned earlier, the contract currently in place between NTEU and IRS runs through the end of September of 2027. So with that in mind, we know our telework, unless there is a change in the law, telework is embedded in and ensconced in that contract, and that will continue to be the case. But I do want to just warn people that these non-bargaining unit employees, many of them managers, but a few support people, such as secretaries, clerical, in some cases, and just support people to managers, are non-bargaining unit people. The president can, through executive order, order those people to come back in every day and not have telework. So we could see some of our fellow IRS employees being forced to come back to work, but they would not be, as you defined it, bargaining unit people that are covered under that contract with NTEU and IRS.
Yeah, we would hope that what management does at the IRS, and I think this is a good idea, is most of it what is called flow through. In other words, what's good for the bargaining unit, they also include, for the most part, non bargaining unit employees. So that's why non bargaining unit employees are able to have that telework advantage as well. We hope that would continue, but it is very possible that the new administration says, okay, we can't force the unionized folks to do this, but we want the non-bargaining unit folks to come in, like you said, the manager or policy people or things of that nature who don't even have employees and are not supervisors per se, that they classify as either non-bargaining or can try and convert to Schedule F to come in every day to the office. Now, this, is a huge issue. One, and I raised this just recently at a meeting we had with some higher ups in the IRS about space. We've been on a space kick for the last several years here because of the fact that we've been doing telework. And even if you wanted to bring everybody back, literally you'd have a big problem because we don't have enough space in many posted duties across the country to do so. So even if this does come to pass, there has to be some time to implement it because of the fact that logistically you just can't snap your fingers and say, okay, it's going to happen overnight. So again, that's why, the main message here is just, be calm. We're watching this. We're on it. Nothing's going to happen on the 20th. Nothing's going to happen on the 21st. That's going to say, okay, you're going to have to come back in the office 5 days a week, especially if you're a bargaining unit employee. If you're non-bargaining, I would imagine even if they did come down with this edict, that it would take some time to implement this as well.
Well, Duncan, there's so many other complexities to this. And just so people understand, even that may not all impact the people in our bargaining unit, the rank and file employees covered under our contracts, even if you were to implement this for management and non-bargaining employees, number one, there's the space issue. It could be, especially in certain localities, hard to find space even for that finite number of people. So that's one issue. But there's a couple of others. One is that we have tons of acting managers all around the country who don't even reside anywhere close to the place they're managing. I mean, I used to be a taxpayer assistance center manager. I'm hearing stories from people now that work there that they have acting managers who have their office in Buffalo, New York. And if they see the person come in once during their acting stint, that's going to be that's going that's going to be unusual just to see the person once. As these acting manager stints, and some can extend for quite a long time. These people aren't even geographically near the people that they are managing. And of course, when I had a taxpayer assistance center manager, I managed one office. It was my home office. I had 3 other offices around the state. So where do you go? Where are you supposed to report? And there are some people in management who do not live anywhere close to the people they're managing. Are they going to be taken out of management? Are they going to be forced to either move somewhere else and to stay in their management job? I mean, I'm just bringing up a few of the complexities that I can think of right now. There have to be many more. So even for the people who would be impacted by a telework executive order, the devil would be in the details. Would you agree?
That is very, very well put. It is so devil in the details because it is going to take some time. So again, I know I keep going back and emphasizing this, but I've heard from so many employees, and I talk to my counterparts across the country, and they're hearing it from their employees that are just totally panicked that this is going to happen overnight. Nothing is going to happen overnight. There may be executive orders issued, things of that nature, but to implement this is going to take some time. And the higher ups in the career employees, higher ups in the IRS know this, regardless of who the commissioner is. I would hope Commissioner Werfel continues, but if he's displaced by the president, then the next IRS commissioner that comes in understands that as well. There are just things that you can't do by a snap of the fingers and saying, okay, we want this to happen right away. Well, it's great you want it to happen right away, but logistically, it just can't.
Well, so that I think we've beaten that dead horse for weeks. So we just want to reiterate it and bring up a few other side issues that. So again, I think the main thing is you may sit next to a non-bargaining person who's been ordered to come into the office every day, but if you're covered under our contract, that doesn't apply to you at this point. So that's a very important message we would like to give you at this juncture. And we don't know what and the executive orders are going to say until we read the details of those. And with all this happening, we don't know what will come next. We want to emphasize something else that President Greenwald mentioned on her last visit to our podcast that we've mentioned since then. It's extremely important that NTEU have a conduit of information to every single member of this union outside the government communication system. We all have email addresses anymore with the government. Some of us have government cell phones. Some of us take home government equipment, just at least use it on the job. But we rely a lot on our government communication system. There are many situations where NTEU number one cannot legally communicate with you through government systems on certain subjects that are important to you. And secondly, we just need a way to communicate with you outside that. You know, you never know if there's going to be an instant shutdown. I hate to say that, but that can happen, or some other type of emergency. Look what's happening in California, where you might work for a government agency and you can't even get to your technology. You might have your cell phone or something, some other way. So, this, for many important reasons, we want all members of NTEU to make certain that your personal email and cell phone number are on record with us. And Duncan, how do you verify that that is the case?
Yeah, basically, it's very, very simple. You go to ntu.org, www.ntu.org, and update your contact information. Make sure it's there. They're doing a contest right now for people who do this, and they'll be doing drawings later on for prizes for people who have either updated their information or confirmed their information. And again, like you said, there could be many circumstances where we either want to or are not able to send out messages over the government email or phone systems or things of that nature, but it's urgent information that you need. And, NTU is not going to be spamming you. They're not going to be selling your information. They're not going to be advertisements, things of that nature. This is for the purposes of keeping you informed. That's why we do this podcast. We want to keep you folks informed. This is the same type of thing. That's why they want to have your personal cell so they can text you, or your personal email so they can email you at home, not something that may not be proper for the government systems, because we want to make sure that we're not violating any legal rules, any legal statuses, things of that nature. So it's of the utmost importance that we have this. If you don't know how to go on to the ntu.org, contact your chapter. If you're here in Indiana, feel free to email me your personal cell phone information and your email address if you want. I'm happy to enter it for you if you would like. We just want to make sure that we're able to keep in contact with everybody in case we need to, or in case we need to share information that's not appropriate to go out over the government systems.
Well, Duncan, it's time to relay some very good news. It should be let me remind people that this whole area of the federal code that governs federal employees is Title V of the United States Code. And under Chapter 41 of that title, there's an area called training. And that area of the law permits federal agencies to, quote, pay or reimburse the employee for all or part of the necessary expenses, unquote, related to training for the position that you have. So if you want to be a better revenue agent or taxpayer assistance a person, or CSR, or collection revenue officer, you want to do a better job with what you're doing, you can get reimbursed for training you take outside the service. NTEU and IRS have reached an agreement on how the agency can use that part of the law and benefit people in our bargaining unit. So, what does this mean to people? What do you have available to you now in training and reimbursement that you did not have before IRS and NTEU reached this agreement?
Yeah, this is one of those things where, to give IRS credit, they brought it to national NTEU. We recently finished negotiating this agreement. It is now waiting what's called agency head approval. Any agreement that we have has to go under agency head approval to make sure it passes, dots all the I's, crosses all the T's for all the legal necessities. So that can take 30 days or so. So it's not implemented yet, but it's great news that we have this because it's yet another tool where folks can take courses and get reimbursed, things of that nature, for the job that they're currently in. We really haven't had that much in effect that's actually helped folks. And IRS wanted to try and do stuff to train up their staff, which is a wonderful thing to do. So once this becomes approved, there will be much more information on it, how much you can get, what types of courses you can look at, how the approval process and application process works, things of that nature. Those details will all be coming, but we just wanted to share with folks that this is out there. It has been agreed to. We're waiting that agency head approval. And then once we get that, we'll be able to start implementing it and hopefully make folks have more training available to be better rounded at their jobs.
Yeah, this is a great example of how there's a joint interest between NTEU and the agency. The agency and NTEU both knew this is something that employees want, that employees will almost certainly take advantage of in many cases. And you're right, the details are not there. We're waiting for agency head approval. We don't think there'll be any problem there, but you never know. So once that hurdle is cleared, NTEU and the management will be laying out the details how you apply what training is going to be reimbursable. So it's just really good news. This is something that I think is a long time coming, and it's good that the agency and the union have come together on this. I don't know whether this item is good news or not. We hope it will be. But now that we are in calendar year 2025, we know what the pay raise is for the first full pay period. So you don't get it in your first paycheck in 2025. You have to wait a little bit for the additional raise or the additional money you'll get in the small raise we are receiving in 2025. We worked for a harder one, didn't get that, but we continue to work on that. And 2026 discussion has already started. And there are a number of our friends that NTU has on Capitol Hill and friends of the federal workforce in general who have already put out the first proposal. They're proposing an average 4.3% pay increase for 2026. Again, this is one of those situations where the Congress has the final say. The president can put their own number in if the Congress is silent, which is what has happened in 2025. So at least there are a number of people in Congress pushing for a 4.3% average pay increase at calendar year 2026. So it's good to know that our friends in Washington who are elected are already looking out for us.
Yeah, this is called under the FAIR Act, which is trying to get pay parity between private sector and federal employees. And the formula that they came up with for this year was the overall 3% base, and then 1.3 per locality pay. It's going to be a tough slog to do, but this is something we work for every year to try and get this passed, or at least get something close to this, especially when we're getting a lower percentage raise. Like you said, this year we weren't that successful. This coming year, we're hoping to be better. But it's just something that symbolizes trying to make sure that there is pay equality between the private sector and the government sector, because the work that we do for the American taxpayers is extremely important, as everyone that works for the government knows. So we want to make sure that people are compensated justly along with their private sector peers. And to be able to try and do this and get the discussion started early, I think is a very good thing. It never hurts.
This is the point where Duncan and I generally choose a final comment to end the podcast. But Duncan and I both agreed that our final comments for this podcast will center around the Martin Luther King holiday, which we're recording this on Friday. Of course, you'll have the Monday off. It just so happens the calendar landed in a particular place where the MLK holiday is happening the same day as the inauguration day. It only happens once every several years, but it did happen to work. So it's not just the federal employees in D.C. which have the day off for inauguration day because the whole city closes down. They close the streets off. It's just impossible to get to work on inauguration day, so they have to close down federal agencies there. But all the federal government will be closed for a holiday on the Martin Luther King holiday this coming Monday. So, Duncan, your thoughts on the Martin Luther King holiday for 2025?
Yeah, this is one of those things. What struck me is, and I'm not sure it's an exact quote or not because I did not look it up in fairness, but the attitude that the Reverend King had was, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And that's what I want people to remember and keep doing the right thing. Keep doing, fighting for what's right, doing what's right, trying to move forward and move our country forward, move our culture forward, things of that nature, so that we're all equal under the law. We're all treated the same way, and trying to get there. And that's, I think, is that message resonates with me today as much as it ever has. And I hope that other folks will look at that and remember it's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
I'm sorry, Duncan, but what always comes to my mind when I think of Martin Luther King, many things, but what happened in Indianapolis the night that he was killed. Um, I worked in broadcasting and I worked in news around the Indianapolis area for many years. And I actually there were a few journalists getting ready to retire, hadn't retired yet, who were actually there. And what I'm talking about is a very important thing that happened because Robert F. Kennedy was running for president in Indiana in the primary at the time Martin Luther King died. And he was headed to a speech in an African American neighborhood near downtown Indianapolis when that news came in. He didn't know how many people in the audience would know this. Some would, some would not. So he had to figure out he had a speech prepared. He threw that away. And one man who could document this was Jeff Greenfield, who's still a journalist today, was a member of Kennedy's staff at that time, and said that he was in the back of a car and he just took out an envelope and wrote down some notes. And that was the source of his speech. He got up and gave an amazing speech. One of the few times he ever referred to the death of his brother, John F. Kennedy, when he told the audience, hey, my brother was killed by a white man, and it's just, it hurt that I lost him. And now we were all hurt that, Martin Luther King had been shot and killed. And what a lot of people forget is that night there was civil unrest in almost every major city in America, except Indianapolis. That was on the local WTLC, the local African American radio station. It was carried live. It was carried live by there wasn't a lot of live ability for TV, but there was a wide reporting and a lot of people who were there passed the word of what Kennedy, the remarks he made, the amazing words he spoke about them. And that's the only reason Indianapolis was spared the civil unrest that happened in other places. I just consider that to be an amazing story still to this day. And there is a park where the speech was given is still there. And there's an amazing sculpture. If you ever visit Indianapolis, go visit that sculpture. It's an amazing piece of work of art. And that's my final comment. We want you to remember on Martin Luther King Day, his family always says it's not a day off, it's a day on. Do something important in your community to support your community. That's all that family has ever asked as a result of that. So thank you very much, Duncan Giles. Thank you for watching and listening, listening and watching, or whichever mode you're using to consume the Chapter 49 podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be back in about 2 weeks. In the meantime, please be safe and be kind.